I'm resident of Colorado, Jules Says for YouTube. I'm joined by my buddy Patrick McCray, my buddy Goran Dymowski. We're here to talk The Prisoner, the final episode of The Prisoner, the final episode of the Magooin 7, I believe.
Well, the final episode of The Prisoner in any count, unless it's the first episode, you know. But yeah, this is I would say this is officially, no matter what you watch it in, is the final episode.
Thank God.
It's called Fallout. You do hear the opening theme on this in the opening, but you don't get the usual video you get with him riding around the car. But I actually like how they start this. They showed the village and play the theme, which was really different and really cool. It's something I like right away about this episode, how they open it. What did you guys think?
Well, they actually, one of the conditions of them filming in Port Marion was that they couldn't reveal where it was until the final episode. So that's why they did that. It was like, okay, it's actually kind of cool too, because it's like, it kind of gives it a sense of, yes, this is a real place. This is not like a set or something we built. And I love the overhead shots because it kind of makes you, and there's actually a prisoner convention that happens there every year. You know, they all like, they'll like, one person plays number 2, the other person plays number 6. There's like kind of a and they all try to like screw each other over. So it's kind of interesting. Well, there is a convention, but it's not like that.
Okay. I know a guy who went to the convention. He unfriended me over the Blu-ray set. Because on the Blu-ray set, on maybe the commentary, one of the special features, they talk about the truth behind Rover.
Yeah.
And that the story was that it went out with the water and it sunk. But on the Blu-ray set, they add some more things. For one thing, we see footage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like shit. It just, pardon my French, but it just looks awful. It looks like a half snowball with a blue police light on top and fringe around the bottom. It looks like a scrubbing bubble that's going to work for the cop. It just looks unthreatening, silly. Nothing to be.
If I may, it looks like a rejected character from a Sid and Marty Krofft production.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that it was more that McGowan realized it looked awful and despondent about the fact that it just didn't look intimidating or good. And that more than it being a mechanical disaster. But that's set is really interesting because it came out about a year or so after Patrick died. And my goodness, we get a different story about Rover. Almost like everyone had to sign an NDA. Get interesting stories about Patrick McGowan that we never got before, especially on Fallout. Commentaries are by, I think one might have been the director of photography and was somebody else, but they said, they confirmed that McGowan was absolutely crazy, that he would just say, point the camera here and have the actors do something. But the idea of there really being a script is not so much. He was firing people first the series right and left if he didn't like the cut of their jib. And he was just a terror to work for. It's the kind of commentary you can only have once the boss is, dead.
Wow,
it's worth listening to. I mean, it doesn't make me dislike Patrick. It makes me like the crew a lot more. I mean, not that I dislike them anyway, but you know what I mean. It makes me really respect what they accomplished. That Patrick McGowan was something that they had to push through just to do their jobs.
Yeah, it makes me realize why so many actors were talking trash about him and Don't Knock Yourself Out.
I've only seen the other documentary, the one that the two fellas did. So I haven't seen Don't Knock Yourself Out, and I really need to watch it.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. When was it? Who made it? When was it made?
I thought it was made
I've been
with
made.
the release of the Blu-ray set, and it
Yeah,
may
but
be.
it's the Blu-ray set, and I either forgot it or I haven't watched it. When you say actors, do you mean other prisoner actors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, there are other actors and actresses from The Prisoner who appear on that. So, what's something, because I know there's a lot to get to with this episode, what's something you like and what do you dislike about this episode?
Yeah, I got a lot to say. I'm sure you do too. If you want to kick off, that's fine.
Okay. Well. One nice thing that I liked about it, um, was that I like the scene where I like that McKern comes in, and you can tell he's just relieved he never has to appear in it again because he's revived. He's like very jovial, and at one point he says some words to the effect of, "I can't believe that I'm in the same place as number 6, and I can't believe that I gave in so easily or so quickly." Um, in terms of what I didn't like, and I'm going to defer to you, Jewel. Um, would you prefer I be tactful and diplomatic, or do you want me to be blunt?
Oh, you can be whatever you want, dude. I don't care.
Okay. I think to start off, this is probably the best piece of Ayn Rand fan fiction I have ever viewed because McGowan totally, he builds up this whole struggle versus individual versus society, and what does he do? He's the Superman. He's the winner. He's passed the trial. He gets to sit on a throne, and it's it's one thing that I understand. He had to write it in 48 hours. He was probably, I know he liked to drink. He was probably hopped up on wacky pills or whatever. But it really feels like this is one of the most self-indulgent pieces, and Patrick could probably speak to this because of the commentary. It's almost like he's saying, those 16 episodes you just watched, let me explain to you what this is all about, because you're not smart enough to pick up what was happening in the past 16 episodes. That's what it felt like to me. It felt
Okay. Give me an example of one of the places he does that.
It's the judge with the, you have won the right to be an individual. There's the hippie guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Leo McKern, who's kind of like the bite the hand that feeds, but McGowan's special because he's just pure rebellion.
Okay, can I posit something?
Sure.
He's being mocked. I always took it as he's being mocked. I never really took that as necessarily sincere.
Because not just because of the judge, but because of the crowd of white people dressed in white with the mask. They're going, I. They're mocking him.
Yeah, and
So
yeah, but it seems. I think that there's just a tone of it really feels because it's so separate and distinct from everything else. To me it's not bad. I think it's just he had to get those images out, he had to get that stuff out there. He needed to come to an ending. But it really kind of felt like it was more about, and again, if from what Patrick said, if he's firing people and that end was so chaotic, something has to give. And I wonder if some of that kind of egotism and pressure made its way not only into the script, but also into the way it's assembled.
You know what they should have did? They should have took Leo McKern. They should have brought in a forklift, okay? And they should have put him on it, raised it up, and they should have had Patrick McGowan wrestle the judge, and Leo McKern on a forklift match. And if McKern won, if McGowan won, he got McKern's body and soul free. That's what they should have did.
Jewel, when you start taking those pills, you've got to take all of them.
Yeah.
You can't stay in the middle of the course.
Yeah. You can't go, okay, you can't say, I'll take the red pill, but not the blue pill. You got to take them both.
No, I'm having a little fun with this. Actually, there was a match called Judy Bagwell on a forklift. And Judy Bagwell was the mother of wrestler Buff Bagwell. And she was put on a forklift. It was lifted up, and if Buff won, they got to lower the forklift, and he got his mother back. So I'm having a little fun there. But this episode, in all seriousness, is really interesting because he's sitting in like a throne chair, and they have this judge who's got this like the fake wig looking thing on and stuff, and he's pounding the gavel, and the guy comes out and he starts sinning. And they're like sinning with him. He's got like everybody riled up. And, like, I love how McGowan calms him down. And then when McKern's character comes out, you guys touched, I think it was both of you guys who said this, that you feel that McKern may have been the original number 6. That's sort of could that be hinted in this episode?
Well, it was hinted because at one point, like I said, there's a scene where it's very quiet, and I think it's right after McKern's number 2 sees himself being poisoned and sees himself dying. He says, "Oh, how did you do it? Poison in the glass?" And then he turns to the camera and he says, I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but I think it was something like, I can't believe that I could have turned so easily. Or so quickly. And I think he's hinting that at some point he might have been taken to the village, but whatever he had to sell, he only resisted so much, whereas number 6 has been always resisting.
Yeah.
Well, I think McKern probably confessed things they weren't even asking. Like after a while, it got embarrassing. It's like, stop. Okay, yes, there was that time in college we don't need to know about. Oh God, he's telling. Oh no, we don't want to know about that. We don't. Okay, so you have to do that when you go to the bathroom. Okay, stop, please. You're embarrassing the controller.
What did you guys think of the big machine with the one on it and the blinking light?
It was a good and absurd recycling of the only piece. The set design on the Prisoner is brilliant because it's just like 4 or 5 pieces that they keep reconfiguring. It's like the Star Trek the Motion Picture Bridge, and it's like I wanted a cave, I got a cave. Now what do I put in? I don't know. It's bigger than I thought. Let's get the crane camera thing and put it over there.
Yeah.
I think they're just kind of mocking him. Hey, this piece of technology, it's not really. It's 2 guys on it. What's putting that here? I don't know. Into our soul?
I think they could. I liked it as kind of this abstract representation of who number 1 is. In fact, I wish they would have kept that and gotten rid of the whole the staircase sequence where he goes up and. Oh, can you hear?
Which one are you talking? Are you talking about the eye?
Yeah, the blinky thing.
Well, I thought he was talking about the seesaw. The 2 guys on the seesaw.
No, I'm talking about number 1.
Oh,
the blinky light thing.
Yeah.
I did like the seesaw too.
Yeah.
That's
No, sorry. I didn't mean to not clarify if I didn't. Let me be more clear. I'm talking about the blinking light with the number 1 on it, and it has this green light, and it's going off and on. When it wants to interrupt them, it does. So the episode starts really interesting. It's sort of a rehash of the episode you just saw, at least the ending part of it, and they're going to take him to number 1. You notice who's beside Patrick McGowan the biggest part of this episode? Yeah.
No.
The Angelo.
Muscat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they who did they tell him he was going to meet? Number 1. Who's standing beside him the entire episode? Angelo Muscat.
Angela Muscat is sometimes there when you go meet number one.
It's really, again, there's a lot of cool stuff in this episode. What did you guys think of it? Is it possible Angela Muscat's your number one here? I mean, he is standing beside Magoo in the entire episode. And I know he did stand, but he was sort of at the beck and call of the number twos, like all of them. So what do you guys think?
I think he's a hired guy. I think if you're really running the village and you want a wacky silent butler, literally Angela Muscat is hire for the party. So it's kind of like Angela Muscat is playing Angela Muscat. They just answered an ad and showed up and said, hey, we're part of this multinational totalitarian espionage monitoring service. And we have a dental plan. And Angelo said, all right.
I don't think, and I said this with Once Upon a Time, I don't think he's number one. I think he's the narc. I think he's the guy, because it's like, there's an old saying about if you, and it's, you usually read a lot about it in like Victorian literature, but it's, if you want to know how someone really is, talk to who works for them.
Right.
And I think Muscat's butler is basically keeping an eye on number two and reporting number one, saying like, okay, number six is a real number on this this guy. He's failing miserably. This person seems to have their head on okay. I don't think he's number one because it's too obvious. It's kind of the, well, of course the butler's number one because he wouldn't want to be known as number one. I think he's the narc.
Yeah.
That is the most credible theory. I mean, would I like Angela Muscat be number one? God, yes. And I want the episode where it all comes down. I want to be riding around inside Rover. All of that. I desperately want that. But I don't think, it's just like, do I want, Vicky and Angelique to have a pillow fight? Yes. But we're not going to get that either.
No, we're not going to get that. But what did you guys think about the guys on the seesaws with the machine guns?
Oh, I love the soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
That adds a really threatening kind of UN. They look like UN peacekeepers, UN soldiers. It has a real sense. I mean, that semiotically raises the stakes of what we're seeing a lot. Unless, of course, it's just to mock number six. Could be. I mean, if we rewind a little bit, because I want to give my 2 cents on some stuff I've also covered.
Okay.
Thank you. My overall impressions of the episode, although I don't do impressions very often, is I love everything about it. But I have kind of written semi-Ayn Rand fan fiction. It's what it first put me on the map. So there I am. It's totally self-indulgent. It is about Patrick McGowan. It is not about the premise of the show. And that's okay, because I think this was an insane effort on Patrick McGowan's part. He probably knew he was a little unhinged. He probably knew he was never going to get to sit in this again. But he still goes to the planet and gets Spock while he's at it. So I appreciate that kind of wretched excess. A lot of great art is self-indulgent, and then the question is, well, do I like what's being indulged? And I do. I feel like it's a real tease, because there's more than I'm getting, and there's probably less. There's probably a lot of stuff where everyone's just trolling my efforts and my desire to impose. In that sense, it's like Green Acres, seriously, where, it's a very Zen TV series where Oliver, the more he tries to impose meaning on something, the less it means, and the more his wife Lisa just sort of goes along with what's going on in Hooterville, the less conflict she has. I love the music and the role of music. I love the music and the role of music in this episode. There are some pieces, I don't know the entire story for this episode, but I think it's largely studio pieces that he just kind of glommed on. But it just has this surging upbeat quality that I feel like we and he have earned. I mean, I feel the same sense of relief that he kind of feels. And the shot where he and Angela Muscat are running through London is just one of the most, to use a Randian term, it has some of the most benevolent, it has just a tremendous benevolent sense of life to it. And I like that. I like happy endings. He's not going to give us a complete happy ending, because and all of that. So it's clear that the village is now everywhere, but it's also clear that the village has someone who's going to fight them everywhere. And I like that too. I like Alexis Canner. I don't know what the hell I don't know what Dem Bones has to do with anything except talking about the weird interconnectedness of society. It is very much Mr. A, Steve Ditko, totally independent era Phantasmagorica, where the characters speak in massive monologues like this one now.
Well, I think I can speak to the Dem Bones issue because I did a little research. The first is on a superficial level, that version of that song was popular at that time. So it would have been, it's like what you, All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. It would have been in the culture. And so McGowan could have pulled that. But it's actually based on a spiritual. And this is where we're going to get a little religious and a little biblical. So apologize, folks. But it's a reference to a quote in the book of Ezekiel, where he talks about going into the valley of dry bones. They will rise up, become people, and then move on to a new Israel. And so I think on some level, there might have been, and given that McGowan's a Catholic, I am a recovering Catholic, I think he might have seen that as like a good shortcut for rising. People are going to rise up and move forward in that regard. They're going to transcend the village. I mean, it's very much like 8th grade symbolism, but you can kind of see where he was going with that.
And that's about my level of art. So as someone who has very little interest in subtlety, I love this episode. I love the sense of both accomplishment and mockery. I don't buy the story about the monkey man, that he just was so sick of being asked who was number one that he decided to go, okay, there's something more there, that it's just this the primal mocking voice of that if you're number one, guess what? Weird sort of response to Anton LaVey. We are our own gods, but the gods are crazy. And I can buy that also. Again, I think it's a lot of response to being Catholic. He's so indoctrinated into the system he can't break out, but he has to keep commenting on it. And so, God in man's image is gibbering ape, and then it's a gibbering human, and there's really no difference. And it's the gibbering self. I don't even know what I just said, but it kind of sounds like it might make sense briefly until you think about it, as does Fallout. I like seeing the joy of Leo McCurran when he comes back and he reconnects with number 6 and they're kind of others in arms. I think that fulfills something that you sense in the other episodes when McCurran hits at, and he just gives it to us. It's very generous in that sense. I like the fact that it's not like anything else in the series. Good, it's the last episode. It's showing me something new. Even at the end, McGowan manages to show us something new. It is both totally incomprehensible and profoundly satisfying. I absolutely love Fallout.
Gordon?
Well, I mean, I enjoyed Fallout, but I wanted to touch on the whole monkey mask issue because McGowan had said in interviews that he was thinking about a Jekyll Hyde metaphor, and that was what popped into his head. Personally, I think if he had just stuck with the blinky light thing as number one, that would have been stronger because it would have been, there's no number one. It's about it talks about the greater forces at work. You never know what those forces are. But I think a better way to have handled that scene, and yes, we are. I am like micromanaging McGowan's work from 50 years on. He goes up, and he just looks, and it's a mirror.
Yeah.
And then the mirror starts talking to him.
Oh, okay, good. That's the punchline.
Because, go ahead.
Everything you're saying, literally, I love. And yes, it is a more responsible piece of storytelling. I still love what McGowan does. The things I really like about what he does when the mask gets ripped off and it's him. It should have been Bob Burns, but it's him. Is that when I first saw this when I was a kid? McGowan has basically two or three expressions. There's not a lot of range. It's, righteous indignation and repressed rage, and smug one-upmanship are basically the A, B, and C that you can program into Patrick McGowan. And it's so much so he is so kind of either stoic or furious that I recognize him. The scene went by. I had read about it. I knew Patrick McGowan was under the monkey mask, but I thought I'd seen some other type. I didn't recognize him because he is so incredibly maniacal. Talk about Jekyll and Hyde. It's so much of this other side that it was only when I watched it again, I went, oh, yeah, that's better.
Yeah. It's really interesting that when he goes up the steps and he's looking at all the globe balls and stuff, and I like how number one hands him it, and he just goes like this, and you see the big number one, and then you see the mask. The cinematography has been really great in this series, and I love how they do it here too. Very underrated.
Yeah, tour de force. They really go all out, and I like that too. I like that. We don't have time for subtlety. I'm going to end this thing. I'm going to end it big. It's big, Jerry. Just it's a wonderful mess.
Yeah. What did you think, Gordon?
Again, overall, I think it's an okay finish. I think it's, despite its flaws, I think it was trying to do something that a show like The Prisoner can't really do if you think about it, which is bring everything to a close. And the reason you can't do that, it has nothing to do with McGowan, is if the themes of The Prisoner are about the individual versus society and kind of learning how to rebel against the forces that are oppressing you, how to maintain your integrity in a world where you're going to be challenged. There's no nice, you can't have the after school special ending where it's like, and today we learned ... I mean, the only other way I can think of to end The Prisoner would be, instead of doing Fallout, you make Once Upon a Time the ending episode. But instead of Fallout, you do an episode that's a transition between Chimes of Big Ben and Once Upon a Time. And you have two storylines. You have number 6, basically a new number 2 is in, and is basically leading him And their approach is, you know what? He's going to fight me all the way. So you know what? I'm going to butter him up. I'm going to, start to slowly corrupt him and try to corrupt him. However they do that.
The pronouns. Which he is doing what to whom?
Oh, number 2 is corrupting number 6. Then you have you can do the same episode because you can go back and forth. The Leo McCray number 2 finds himself in the dark room. He's got Rover in a chair, and he's got the butler. And because McCray had his head had gotten a haircut and shaved when Fallout was produced, and you produced this episode at that point, he's like, wait a second. I came that close to corrupting numbers. I came that close to getting number 6 to break. Why are you punishing me like this? Why am I stuck in this jail cell, whatever? And he's starting to get a little bit more defiant. So you're setting it up. So number 6 is he is the man who will not be corrupted, who is on his way, the man who will not compromise versus the man who compromised. And they're both psychologically at the same place, except number 6 is like, okay, I'm because when you see in the beginning of Once Upon a Time, he's raging. He rages at a guy for no reason. So you build that up in this transitional episode. McCray is coming in with, okay, well, you're going to need to do it my way. And so Once Upon a Time, you have, and you don't change anything about Once Upon a Time. Not a word or a line of that script, because now you've introduced a new set of stakes. So it's not just degree absolute. It's, that number 2's putting as much on the line as number 6 is.
Yeah.
And that way, but I think with Fallout, it's a complicated, there are pieces of it that I really like, and I can see where he was going with it. And I kind of feel, though, like you can tell that it was crunch time, and McGowan, in another world, had there been maybe a little bit more oversight, maybe if McGowan had the idea initially, it might have been a more effective script. There might have been certain things that were taken out, because that way it had been a little bit more streamlined. And I think it would have been a little bit more refined to the point where McGowan was saying precisely what he wanted to say, and needed to say. That doesn't feel like you have the same script. You have a similar script. It's just a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more direct. The problem is, one, we don't live in that. But I think for what it is, I think it works. There's a lot about it that annoys me, but I do think overall it works, because it tries to give a solid conclusion to a premise that there really is no conclusion to.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. I don't know what my last episode would have been if it weren't this. I like the idea that after Fallout, he finds himself somehow back in his apartment. He's gassed again after he puts on his outfit, but there are mementos around from the village, like the radio. It doesn't work, but it's the radio, and he has these pieces of evidence, and so he becomes obsessed with breaking back in.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because there actually was a graphic novel that was, Shattered Visage. It's available as for those of you at home, it's available as a trade paperback via Titan Books, because I also reread that, and it does something really interesting with the idea of Fallout. What it says is that, and it's in the kind of introductory pages, basically the events of Fallout were basically Degree Absolute Part 2. That number 2 set all of it up, including his own death and resurrection, to kind of really push number 6 to the breaking point. And the novel takes place 20 years after. And number 6 is still in the village. And number 2 is basically And you kind of see this at the end of Fallout, where Leo McCurn is dressed in it's a costuming that is coded for boring, stuffy government official. And Leo McCurn's number 2 in the graphic novel is writing a tell-all book. And there are shenanigans aplenty. But what happens is at the end, and I love how and I'm going to spoil the ending a little bit of this graphic novel, but read it. I encourage people to read it, where the lead character is talking with number 6. And she, the lead character, asks 2 questions. The first is, who is number 1?
Mm.
And number 6 answers, does the existence of number 2 necessarily require the existence of a number 1?
Mm.
It says everything and it says nothing. And then she also asks, are the secrets in your head safe? Yes. How do you know? And number 6 answers, because we wouldn't be sitting here if they weren't.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's intense. I like that. What did you guys think of the costumes in this episode? We have most of the people who have been working for the village or all dressed in white, and they got these white and black masks on. I felt like I was partially watching a Halloween movie a bit.
Yeah, I mean, is this angelic? Is it an angelic chorus? Is it harlequins who are, clowns making fun of them? Yes, to all of that. I love it's the controller, right? That's the name of the
Yeah, that's the name of the character.
Yeah, the name of the character. I love the controller is one of them.
Yeah.
That he now has a larger context, and we suddenly are forced to, think about, what is the ruling party of the village, and what kind of liquor man stuff are they up to, at night, and how does the thing really run? And it's a new layer of mysteries that the costumes really convey. That while it's sort of trying to answer some questions, it leaves much larger and weirder questions there. But these are attitude choices. They allude to a lot, and that's what they're supposed to do. They don't, they're not going to give you anything more than that. It looks very official, very Masonic, but utterly theatrical, like so much of what we see on The Prisoner.
I have a question, and I don't know if either of you noticed, because I couldn't quite make it out. But I know the masks were in half, one black, one white. The mouth, were they straightforward mouths, or was one end up or one end down?
I don't remember.
Because I'm thinking like the whole, like in theaters, you have the 2 masks, comedy and tragedy. I was wondering if that was part of that. That was, and I also liked how each one of them, they have like some random word in front of them, like entertainment, physics, politics, education.
This is the part of monitoring, because I thought, okay, is this what they're representing in society? Well, maybe not, because the controller is very monitor figure, and so I kind of get the idea this is their segment of society that they're watching. Maybe they're pulling some strings. That's my emotional impression of what I.
Yeah. I think it's the masks are sort of like they're not necessarily up or down, but I think they're just like they look like a normal like straight looking face, almost like I want to say like it's like this, like but it's like the mouth's like a little bit open, like barely, and it's like this.
They always struck me as those weird grimaces that people make both in moments of laughter and moments of great sorrow. Yeah. And it's a mystery. I remember when I was a kid, and sometimes another kid would get hurt or something, and he would start to cry. And there's that second where you look at the face, and you listen to the sound that's coming out, and you think it's going to be laughter, and then it resolves itself to something much darker. But there's that scary suspense because you don't want the kid to be hurt. You think, okay, well, he's going to laugh, and it's ultimately not. And that's what those masks always sort of in my mind.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the spacecraft like taking off, if you will?
It's an escape vehicle. It's a missile. It's self-destruction. It's a big penis. I mean, it's all those things.
I think it it's one of those pieces that I think had McGowan like went over it, I think he might have taken it out, because I think the implication would have been he's shooting the rocket to come back down to destroy the village, because that's where they're going, hey, evacuate. But it's not quite clear.
Oh, I got the idea it was just an evacuation vehicle.
Oh, because I think it's hard too, because I don't think he would, because he was pressing the buttons to send the rocket off.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he would do it to let people escape. I think he'd probably think, okay, I'm going to make sure this village gets destroyed. Now, it may have been an escape vehicle and he just didn't know it.
Yeah, sometimes the buttons actually do anything, that they would let number 6 have access to it, or they didn't want number 6 to think he has access to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's the moment before he starts pressing all those buttons, the number 1 goes up into like another part of the missile, if you will, to get away from him, and we never see him again. And it's just like, so when he's pressing those buttons to sort of take the missile off, is it just to kill number 1? Is it just to like have it come back up and come back down and get the village, or is it both? Or does he, is he just trying to do this to see if number 1 will come back out? And then it's just like, well, he just didn't. To me, McGowan's character number 6 just didn't give a damn. He wanted out of there. So.
That works.
There's also this notion. There's an idea I had. I saw the movie Escape Room. Have you ever seen this movie Escape Room?
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie. It's about a series of escape rooms, and the heroine gets to the end of it, and it's some bizarre dark cabal doing all of this stuff to seemingly innocent people, and I thought that was a lame ending. To me, the ending I would have enjoyed, again, this is always Monday morning quarterback nonsense, but why not? Would have been that it's, she finds it's a guy, and he said, yeah, I'm doing it. Why? I got money. It's for fun, and she just she refuses to believe him. And I love the idea of the banality of evil, down to the heart of it. Just some guy. It might be an insane guy, but it's just some guy. And the idea I had pursuant to the prayer is that, he finally finds number 1, and it's a guy in an office with a filing cabinet and things like that, and and like the one says, "Why are you doing this?" And he just kind of smiles and says that would be telling. And suddenly we have this complete inversion where number 6 is going to do everything he can to find out why number 1 is running all of this. And number 1 is determined, no matter what, to not tell him. And, and it just ends, why are you running it? Why did you resign? Why won't you tell me? Why won't you tell me? And it just kind of pulls back on them like, at the end of Seinfeld, with the two of them just eternally engaged in this set of ultimately unanswerable questions.
Yeah. What if, again, because this show is sort of going to go on to inspire the Truman Show, the movie The Truman Show. So what if they sort of pull a Truman Show prior to the Truman Show? What if he gets to number one, and it's not just number one's been watching, the whole world's been watching, and he's been presenting this as this crazy TV show, and everyone treats number 6 like a celebrity, like it's all fake, and he's like, no, it was real. It was real. He's trying to convince the world it was real,
Sure.
and he'll never convince them.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Yeah, you're our entertainment because he's monitored all the time. He thinks he's alone when he's on the beach, but none of his beach plans work out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon, what do you think?
I think it's a great idea. The only question I would have is if they're looking for top secret information from him, there's going to have to be a point where they may not want that information to go public.
Yeah.
If they're trying to break, it's one thing if it's they establish that and then they go, okay, we thought he just casually mentioned why he resigned. He's not. Now we got to break him. But since the premise is he's not going to speak, and so they will break him. They need to break him. I don't think having surveillance on him makes sense because essentially the village is a prison. I mean, that's why the show is called The Prisoner and not Patrick McGowan's weekly temper tantrum. But if you're seeking some kind of information, you want to keep an eye on him, but you don't want him to ever feel like you want to keep your eye on him. You don't want other people to keep their eye on him.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you watch other episodes of The Prisoner, you'll find that there are actors who play multiple roles, and there are, like McGowan has said, oh, the prisoner, number 6 is not John Drake, and that that there are people who argue, well, if the same actor plays 2 or 3 different roles, they're 3 different people. I think no, because in universe it makes sense. The espionage community is going to be very tight knit. They're paranoid. They're not going to be all like, it's not going to be like, hey, let's talk about spy stuff over dinner. So of course you're going to see the same people show up. And I think it gives it more of a sense of it increases the paranoia because it's like person in a party scene in A, B, and C turns out to be number 2 in Many Happy Returns. That's creepy.
It is.
Yeah, it is really creepy. There's a lot of creepy stuff about this series. Overall, what did you guys think of the white ball thing, Rover?
It's a great solution to a lot of problems. Pretty much, it's the most magical character in the show, and it is what it says, as they might say in Chimes of Big Men. It's just this wonderful, seemingly harmless but ultimately malevolent, featureless cipher. And it's also the world, but everything is the same. They kind of allude to is, I think Leo McCurn's number 2 talks about that. Dave, and this is all the village. Yeah, but I don't think McGowan sat down and said, I must find something that's representative of the world. No, he was like scotch and looking at the sky and saw a weather balloon and a solution to his problem.
Yeah, and I think too, it's the most abstract threat you can think of. Whereas if you had the Sid and Marty Krofft rover, every time it showed on, you'd be taken. You wouldn't feel any danger because it's a device.
Yeah.
With the weather balloon, it's a weather balloon on some fishing wire, but the way it's shot and with that weird roar that accompanies it, it becomes a very abstract threat. Something, stuff is going to go down. You just don't know what. Because especially when they stretch the rubber across somebody's face, I mean, that is a really disturbing image. I think
I think it's McGowan's face every time. It's that one stock shot.
Oh, I thought it was like, well, they're really good at editing because I thought it was like different faces at different times.
I think I'm not certain, but I think they were too cheap for that. I think it's just that one face.
Well,
Maybe wrong.
Well, it's also effective too because it takes out your individuality, and the fact that they've used that shot for different actors when it's the same actor, I think really shows like that's the threat that Rover presents is that it will take your distinctiveness away. You know, it will, if you go out to sea, it will pull you back to shore. If you mess with your superiors, it will sit in your chair while you're trying to eat your breakfast.
I really like the way they kill off Rover. It was very creative. After McGowan messes with all those switches and you see the rocket taking off, Rover begins to die. And they make as much as they made Rover coming to life look magical, they make his death even look more magical, which gives the character of Rover a lot of credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool effect by the folks at the prison. Really great job.
The existence of Rover, just the visual mystery of Rover, is as important to the ongoing pop culture survival of the prisoner as an intellectual property as anything. There's part of me that wonders if the show really would have been as successful without that core kind of mystery image. And it's another circle. You know, the village is all about circles and half circles. You know, the penny farthing, the green dome, even though there's a happy accident. The set design, you know, of all of the official offices are circular. Um, and it just is the unifying principle. It's the embodiment of everything we've seen in the village aesthetic.
Gordon, what did you think?
Yeah, I think the idea of Rover as it's that particular, I think the way they exercised Rover really made the show. Because again, if they had gone with the blue cake Sid and Marty Krofft version, as a viewer, you would always know, okay, that's a machine. You'd think that's a special effect. That is something that is mechanical. I don't feel the threat because it's like if you watch Star Trek and it's like, okay, there's a threat. You know, the ship's about to blow up. What do we do? You know, technobabble, you fix it. But that big white ball, you don't, you know, there are hints that it's alive. It's a living thing. It seems to act with some autonomy. It also is a very credible threat in multiple ways because you don't know what it is. You can't say, oh, that's a machine.
It's unfixable. You know, if it's a robot, number 6 is clever enough. He can get in and tinker with it and make, you know, reprogram it. How do you even begin to reprogram Rover? What is it? And the other thing is that it was a very savvy move by the production, because could a robot have been created that was incredibly frightening? Sure. Fort, Robbie the Robot, 9, all of them are fantastic pieces of production design. And if Lost in Space had never happened, and number 6 had to go up against, you know, the B9 is there, Lost in Space, that's a great piece of production design. That's really scary. But the English are never going to have that kind of budget. And maybe they're never going to have that kind of imagination to pull something like that off, something like Gort off. It's not kind of the production design heritage that I think of as being English. And that may be budget driven, or it may just be, you know, certain traditions. However, The English are great at full mysterious, elusive images, and Grover completely plays to their design strengths.
Yeah, if to use like an example from a similar company, the Avengers had two episodes in 2 years featuring what they called cybernauts, which was basically a guy in a big coat, big metal mask, maybe a hat, and gloves and walk stiffly. Watching on the Avengers, it's a very lighthearted show. It's a different kind of show. You could get away with that because they can be a credible threat. You put that on a show like A Prisoner, it looks cartoony.
Yeah.
Really, to Gordon's point about where Rover looks live, if you really want evidence of that too, the schizoid man, I think it's called for The Prisoner, where there's two Patrick McGoons, and it has like it's sort of having a decisive it's sort of like it's deciding which one to go after, so it gives you that this thing's alive vibe.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to add about Fallout?
Don't knock yourself out.
That's on the link for that. For Don't Knock Yourself Out will be on YouTube if anybody wants to go check out that documentary. The other documentary in my mind is on Tubi. It's free. Gordon, is there anything you want to add before we go?
I would say that if you watch Fallout, you want a really good kind of semi sequel. Yeah. Check out Shattered Visage because the art is it's not to my taste, but it's wonderfully written, and it not only solves some of the problems of Fallout, but it really does it recontextualizes some of the themes in The Prisoner it's a very really good way where you finish reading it and you go, okay, yeah, I get it now.
It's a couple ways in which I think it's very well written is that it just captures the voice of the prisoner. I can hear Patrick McGowan, William McCray. I mean, I can really hear them in it. It feels like an adaptation of some weird reunion movie that never got made.
Guys, it's been a lot of fun for these episodes. What's next?
Yeah, Gordon, what should we look at next? Now that we're looking at sort of the Prisoner Apocrypha.
You know what? I'm gonna go a little quirky. Let's do Living with Harmony, the Western.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, my favorite episode.
Sure.
I'll leave it with this. I think Living in Harmony maybe should have been the last episode. I'll make a case why next. When's the next time you're available, Gordon?
Let's see. I am available Thursday night. And I know Saturdays you usually have other guests, so I can do Thursday night or I can do Sunday night.
Let's do Thursday. How's that for you, Patrick?
I think that's great.
I have a birthday to celebrate tomorrow. My daughter's turning 14. So.
Congrats. Take her out for cake and ice cream.
We actually went to the store today and picked up cake and ice cream. So she's all excited. But you guys have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll see you guys Thursday. Be seeing you.
Seeing you.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye, all.
Bye.